Hello, Neil here. Welcome to my channel. We talk about DevOps stuff. Today I'm going to talk about teams and the roles in that team other than software developers. Let's get into it. Here's an overview of what a software development team looks like. We've got a number of roles in the team, and the developer makes up only one part of that team. It is teamwork that makes the dream work after all. In the diagram here, we've got the team roles on the left, and on the right, the processes that we follow. We're going to focus on the team roles. The roles supporting software development are numerous. We have a couple listed here. We've got the UX UI, all about user interface and user experience. And they come down to designing the various bits and bobs that we need to present to the user. QA, or quality assurance and testing, is another important part if you're going to deploy pipelines. We can reliably deploy software into production if we've got tests that test the underlying stuff. We run the pipeline, we deploy it to a test environment, test the functionality, both new and the old, so we don't get any regressions. And then once all those tests passed, we can rely on our tests, we can automatically push that straight into production. Easy peasy. We also have the technical lead here. This role is quite nuanced and quite important. It's somebody who leads the technical direction of where we're going. The developers might want to develop a new feature because the product owner, we'll get onto those in a moment, have told them that something the customer wants as a feature. The technical lead's responsibility is to guide and direct on the best way of achieving that goal. Depending on the newest feature of the feature, it might be a new technology or a new tool or just a new way of doing things. Most of the time, it's just reiterating the current ways of working. Some code bases can get so large that you can't remember it all in your head. But the technical lead can remember the decisions behind it, and the motions and decisions stay in the memory better than code lines do. A new feature or a change to a feature can then need or call on a new technology. But if there's already code in the system that we've already got, written, tested that does that, it's better to use that and reuse the code than it is to create something new and adding risk into the project. So the tech lead quite often just reminds people of what's already there at their disposal. And if you can reuse components, it means we can deliver faster. Talking of delivery, there's a DevOps role. They're in charge of looking after that delivering the final mile. Getting that code built and tested and deployed, hopefully with an automated process so that everybody can do it in a self-service style. The programmers can help themselves. The testers can help themselves. And therefore, without that reliance on other parties, the whole process is more streamlined. DevOps also looks after the infrastructure. The thing that actually runs the thing also provides logs and metrics so that we can provide feedback to the team about how well or not well we're doing. Whilst the doers are doing, it's also important to stay focused and on track. And so there's several roles in a cross-functional team that enable us to do that. We've got the product owner. They interface mainly with the customer, or they are the designer of the product that you're building. They can decide the priorities in which new features or bugs should be fixed. They give a guiding hand to the direction of the product and also keep the momentum up so that we can keep moving at a good pace. There's no point developing new features if they never get deployed to production. We have the Scrum Master or Delivery Lead. They also keep the flow of stuff going. The main role is to make sure that everyone's okay and they're not blocked by anything. Do they need something from another team? Do they need a tool? Do they need that license renewing? That kind of thing. Just to kind of oil the gears within the team and make sure that everything is running smoothly. The technical lead. As already mentioned, they help the team with the direction. When there's new features, they'll advise the product owner about how easy it is to create that new feature. Does it use existing code we've already got? Great, we can deliver it faster. Or does it require a rethink of quite a section of the code and introduce new code and new tools, in which case it might take a bit longer to deliver. Some teams have a business analyst. These come into their own when there is a new requirement and we're not quite sure what it looks like. This role is really good at talking to people They're really good at translating the business needs into a language that the team understands so that we can deliver it. This role can lead and bleed over somewhat into the user experience because it's all about understanding what the user wants from the system. The business analyst will often work with the technical lead in order to round out a good design. And finally, it's nearly a tool, but to keep us on track, we've got the backlog. Often displayed on a Kanban board so you can see what there is to do and, more importantly, what order to do it in. Priorities is considered to be a role of the product owner. The usual flow of work being the team will complete a ticket is done, it's delivered, it's tested, and it's deployed to production, and that ticket can be closed. They then look to the next column for the next piece of work, which is usually at the top. In this way, work or tickets, or whatever you want to call them, start at the top of the backlog, get moved into in progress, maybe through some design and deployment steps, and then finally delivered to production. But moving code into production isn't a straightforward task, and that's what DevOps helps with. To start with, the DevOps role will define what the environments are, often at the beginning of a project. Do we need a production? Of course, otherwise nobody can use the product. Do we need a testing environment? Probably, so we can get those automated tests in there. And do we need a development environment, so that the programmers and the other people in the team can deploy something to an environment that's like production just to test how it works in a real life situation? Other customers I've worked for have had even more environments than this. You might have a user acceptance testing where it's deployed and some manual users actually get into the system and check out a new feature. In a startup, that might well be in production, and you can use feature flags to switch those features on or off so that only a certain subset of the users can see that new feature. In some very large organizations, there's a pre-production so that people can have a practice at how to deploy it into production. As I've mentioned before, if your tests are good enough, once you've put it into your test environment and the test passed, there's no reason why it shouldn't go straight into production, thus foregoing the pre-production environment. Another environment that exists is the build environment. This is one solely decked out with all of the building and testing tools at the disposal of the team. It takes in the source code, builds out the artifacts, and provides a sort of playpen so that everyone can see where the progress is with each individual ticket. Once it's built and an artifact has been decided upon and tested, it can then go into the deployment pipeline. Of course, what the deployment pipeline looks like depends on the environments that you've decided on above. You might want to automatically deploy it into a development environment, and then it stops. In other teams, I've seen them deploy into a QA, quality assurance environment, followed by a staging environment with some more testing with different data, and then on to production. The only other environment I've not mentioned is performance testing. This might be coupled with the pre-production environment, so it's scaled up like production, and so you can throw real workloads at it. This stress tests the application, and so you can see how well it performs under load and make any adjustments necessary before the final production deployment. And this leads on to the last point, monitoring. When we're in the performance, we want to know how well the application is performing, and this is done by monitoring. The monitoring will give us logs, so that if there are any errors, we can see what those are and feed them back to the team. It'll also give us metrics, so that we can see if we're maxing out the resources that we've allocated to the application. These can be visualized by way of dashboards or alerts. These are just some of the roles that aren't software developers. Can you think of any more? Let me know in the comments. If you like this content, don't forget to like the video, and to get more content like this, subscribe to my channel. I'll see you soon.